Good morning. For those of you that are in other parts of the United States, good afternoon. And those of you that are in other parts of the country or the world, good evening. But we want to say thank you all so much for tuning in to this Youth Town Hall on Stop the Hate. I'm Dr. Leonard Thompson with GOD Radio and Mandate Records. And in conjunction with Blue Heart, we wanted to have a conversation with intelligent, bright young people. And we're so happy that the young men of Blue Heart and some of the young ladies that are in the room are here to have an open conversation about hate and how we can stop it. Now, we do know statistically that African Americans are the highest percentage of people that are experiencing hate nationwide. And so today, we're going to ask questions. We're going to ask you to ask us questions, but also we brought together a panel that is with us today. We have Dr. Michelle Thompson. She is the program director of GOD Radio. And we also have Commander Kelso from the San Diego Police Department, and your very own Matthew Gordon, President and CEO of Blue Heart Foundation. So we're excited about having you here, you young men and women, and we're asking that as we go and we get certain presentations that are done, that you ask questions. And we want to hear your voice. So when you have questions, please come up to the microphone and be a part of it. We're also, and I know she's sneaking in, but we also have Miss Ellen Nash from BAPAC and many other organizations. And so we have these experts in the room. I want to say thank you to Miss Tammy Blevins, Tammy T. Blevins. There you go. I got to put Tammy T on it. Miss Lon Jefferson and the parents that are here that have brought their young people here today. So before I go any further, I want to ask Mr. Gordon if you would just come up and just talk about Blue Heart and why you got involved with Stop the Hate campaign.
Thank you so much, Leonard, and thank you and Mandate Records for putting this on. Again, my name is Matthew Gordon, President and CEO of the Blue Heart Foundation, where our mission is to build our community by providing a secure and equitable path to higher education, emotional health, and character development for young African-American males. You see why I expect y'all to know that? Because Cool. A little bit about Blue Heart. We've been in existence for the last 10 years. It was founded by Tracy, the late Tracy, and April Ray Morris. In the last 10 years, we've served a little over 500 young black men throughout San Diego County, and each and every single young man that has gone through the program have been accepted into four-year universities. Not only that, they're averaging between 15 and 20 college acceptances. We're more than just your average mentoring program. We provide personal, professional, and academic development, resources, and support. The reason why we're involved in the Stop the Hate campaign, one of the things that we work to instill in our guys is that cultural awareness piece. Most of us are from Southeast San Diego, so it can be a bit of a bubble. There's more to life than just our hood that we come from. And then using and utilizing those tools to make it to the next level, primarily college. Another thing I'd like to touch on as well, in addition to the cultural awareness piece, is that emotional awareness. We try to instill in our guys how to be mindful, how to identify their emotions, how to cope with their emotions, and most importantly, how to make the best decision for themselves with that identified emotion. And this ties into Stop the Hate. Our young guys will utilize the tools that we provide to them on school campuses, whether it be middle school, high school, and of course, college. So I hope that.
It's okay. You can clap. That's good. That's good. I'm going to skip over Commander Kelso and go straight to Dr. Michelle with GOD Radio. How did you all get involved with this campaign, and how have you pushed forward to make sure that the campaign is going well? They're trying to.
Is it on? There we go. There we go. We got involved with the Stop the Hate campaign when we first learned that California was going to be the first state to ever put something like this into action. We also saw an opportunity to reach listeners on the internet. A lot of people still listen to terrestrial radio if you're listening in the car, AM and FM, but internet can be, you can listen to it anywhere, especially if you have a free app like godradio1.com does have. We also noticed that when we have an opportunity to put visuals before people, such as a flyer, something like that, or we have a 1-800, what is that, the 1-888, there it is, 888, or 833-8-NO-HATE, something like that constantly being on our app when people are listening to the radio station. You could be literally experiencing something or watching somebody else go through it and need a quick resource. And if you've got a phone in your hand and you've got the phone number sitting right there in front of you, you can report it right away. We just saw it as an opportunity to reach the young, the middle-aged, and the old, because seniors also experience hate crimes. I don't always think about it, but you know, it's true. Elderly are targeted. They have been targeted on the bus. They've been targeted on the trolley line. They've been targeted just walking down the street. Our homeless have been targeted, just sleeping on the curb, don't have nowhere to, you know, go and go into a house or anything, and people walk down the street and kick them in the head while they're laying there on the curb, sleep. So we have a lot of different ways in which we can target hate crimes. We can also get involved. Many of you, I'm anxious to hear from some of you, because some of you have also been targeted. If it's not the way you dress, if it's not the way you look, if it's not who you're running with or hanging with, you have people that will target you and say some really discriminative things to you or mean things to you. I actually want to hear what you all have to say. I don't want you to think this is a classroom setting, because it's not. That's why that microphone is there. You all are going to be very interactive in helping us to really zero in on this, especially here in California. We can't do anything about Washington, D.C., but we live here in San Diego, California, and we can make a difference here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Michelle. Now, Commander Kelso, you know firsthand hate crimes and things that are taking place in our community, and being that you are so well versed, you probably have heard about it throughout California and the United States. Just tell the young men who you are and how you have been able to make an impact in the whole hate crime and resolving issues so that it won't continue on.
Good morning, young men. Good morning. All right, sit up straight. Sit up straight. There we go. Now, just as Dr. Thompson explained, I'm Commander Ben Kelso. I'm with the San Diego Police Department. I am, in essence, a chief level officer that is focused on community and youth services. So my role will be to assist young people like yourselves and others throughout the city with community events. That's what the juvenile officers work on, school safety patrol, different mentoring and other organizing events for you to kind of help you navigate. And that'll be based on the police department's involvement. The police department is not all about arresting people in crime. That is a part of what we do to help make everyone safe. But we also have to find ways to build bridges, right, and close gaps between young people and the community, right? So that's kind of what my role is. And I didn't start that today. I was once like you. I grew up in Detroit and in Flint, Michigan. And I don't know if you've ever been to Detroit or Flint, but if you heard about Flint, it was about a decade ago or so. They had a big.
Seemed like it was 6 years ago.
It was like a big water. Basically, the for lack of a better term, the state government decided to change the water source that went to Flint, Michigan, and it caused a whole bunch of problems and made a bunch of people sick and shut down a lot of industries. And in that region of the country, the primary industry was the auto industry in America, and that came up during the World War II era, which is a long time ago to you guys. Might as well have been like, I don't know, your great-grandfather's time, but we had a world war in the United States in the 1930s into the 1940s, and in order to support that effort, factories that made cars began to produce tanks and other machinery to help the war effort, and they needed labor for that. And we had a great migration of people from the South, particularly people of color, moving north to get good jobs. And once they got those jobs, they were able to do things for themselves and buy houses and cars. And this was during a time when black people weren't allowed to have those things. All right, and they struggled, and that kept them very poor. And by getting this job that allowed them to gain independence is what really got people like you to where you are today. So we stand on the shoulders of those people who did those things. And along with that, we've had some struggles with law enforcement. Law enforcement was designed back then to keep order, but particularly with black folks, it was designed to kind of keep us in our place because we had a segregated system, right? The Supreme Court had made a rule that we had to have separate but equal things, and it wasn't separate and equal, it was separate and unequal. And law enforcement was often used to maintain that system. And that has changed over time as well, but there's always remnants of those things that remain that we still got to work on. And that's what I am here to do with the San Diego Police Department, to kind of change and make things better for you, but for the community in general. So I got a lot of experience. I was an award-winning juvenile officer back in the 1990s, school safety patrol officer, a middle school officer. We had a program that we taught in the schools. So as a uniformed officer, I would go to the schools and teach classes every day to students about drug abuse. And with those came lessons about life. And I've been doing that for, well, my entire career, working with kids. I had my own program similar to Blue Heart, but it was called Kelso Youth Karate. That's what it was. And with that program, I wound up taking students like you that were involved in martial arts to the U.S. Olympic Training Center. We got them involved in Olympic Taekwondo, and then we sponsored a team that flew all the way to Seoul, Korea to compete against teenagers in Seoul, Korea, and we got a tour and all those things, and the Vice President of the United States came to San Diego to meet that team. So it seemed like a natural fit for me to have Youth and Community Services.
Yeah. Yeah, we're very excited having you here, and congratulations on joining us here. Dr. Michelle, if you'll just read what it says, what is a hate act? I want you all to hear what the definition is of a hate act. And then from there, I want you guys to start thinking about the questions that you would like to ask of the panel, or share an experience that you have experienced that you would like to share and have us address.
That's good right there. So what is a hate act? A hostile expression or action committed in whole or in part because of a person's actual or perceived identity or identities or characteristics, including race, color, disability, religion, national origin, sexual orientation, or gender, including gender identity, or because that person is a part of a protected group.
All right, so this by a show of hands. How many of you guys feel like you guys have experienced hate? Raise your hands high so I can see them. How many of you all feel like you have experienced seeing your friends experience hate? Okay. All right. Can somebody come to the mic and share maybe one of their experiences that they had that we can address? Because, again, we need to hear your voice. One of you young people, before go ahead. You go ahead. I see you. Okay, go to that mic.
Be brave, young people. Be brave.
All right.
It's a safe space.
Share your name.
My name is Matthew Montgomery.
Yes, Mr. Montgomery.
One of the hate that I've addressed was I used to have my hair out. Like, I used to be proud of, like, I had a big afro, and I would come to school, and I would be excited to show my friends, and they'd come and be like, "Oh, you have broccoli hair," or "Your hair is ugly," and it would make me sad. And that's when I used to cut my hair a lot, and then I had to talk with my mom to like gain confidence and stuff, because when I cut off my hair, I was sad, but that's when I had really thought about other people's feelings instead of mine. So that's when I like had to talk with my mom and stuff about it, and she's like that I shouldn't care and that do what's best for me.
Okay. All right. So let me ask you a question. Do you feel like you were being picked on because you were African American, or just because you were different?
I feel like both of those, really, because that's what it felt like.
Okay. And so how are you now?
I feel more confident in my hair because I don't really care about what people say about my hair now.
Okay. So my last question, you can sit down. I'm going to ask the group. If that happened to you, how would you handle it? Now, he did something that was very, I always say, smart. He went and talked to his parent. You know what I'm saying? But how would you handle it if you felt like you were being discriminated against or picked on because of just your hair? Anybody want to share? I know. Come on. Mr. Black.
Come on. Come to the mic.
Yeah.
All right. My name is Jeremiah Blackman. I would when I was a kid, I would probably just respond to it by talking to my mom. Mainly because like in 5th grade, I used to get bullied a lot too. I actually had to like move school 30 minutes away because I was getting bullied too much, to a point where I was coming home every day, complaining and crying to my mom about it. I think I would just handle the situation, talking to my parents, letting them know what was happening at the moment. But yeah.
Why do you think you were being bullied?
I think I was being bullied just mainly because one, I was getting these bowl cuts like every single week. Some people, like some kids, like even in 5th grade, like they be slapping the back of my head because like they just thought it was cool to do so. And you know, just the clothes and the shoes I was wearing, it was just giving people a reason to say something about me. And
okay. All right. Thank you, sir. How many of you guys, is there anybody in the room that have seen a friend being bullied or discriminated against, or literally seeing somebody with what we would call a hate crime take place, and it wasn't you, but you knew something had to be done? Anybody experience that? Sir, come to the mic, share.
So, you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So, one of my friends, they're not as tall as everybody else. They're low key short, but like the older kids, they used to like pick on them a lot, and it used to happen like all the time. So that's how I like during school, I'll low key stay next to them just so like if anybody try and come mess with them, I'll tell them like watch out or like back off of them because I know how bad that make them feel. So, yeah.
Okay. So you stood up and protected them.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's good. And they wasn't gonna mess with you. Okay. They understood the situation. Thank you so much, sir. Now I want to talk to the panel right quick. There was a situation that happened, I would say, in the East County, where a young African-American young lady got into a disagreement and it became a fight, and she was actually stabbed a couple of times. And the children that stabbed her, parents were on scene, and it seemed that they were encouraging this to take place, and then they all left the scene. Commander Kelso, when those things happen, are the parents just as responsible as their child, especially if they're on scene?
Actually, they're more responsible. One thing we can tell you about people is that we're all different, right? And being different is actually what makes us unique. All right. We're part of a collective group. You're all part, like you're part of Blue Heart. That's a collective group. And you're African American. That's a group, right? And you're American. That's a group, right? You may live in southeastern San Diego. That's a group. Or you may live somewhere else. So what we find is a lot of intersectionality of different groups that all come together in you. And it's the same way with other people. And because we have differences, we have conflict, right? And particularly with young people, you will have more conflict, but some of that is just based on maturity, all right, and lack of knowledge or lack of development, or lack of understanding. But the expectation for adults is higher than that, right? And even though that expectation is higher, we still have adult people that don't live up to that expectation, don't rise to the occasion, don't recognize that the behavior they model gets transferred down to their young people, right? We're really divided in this nation for a lot of different things, right? Our language and our color and maybe the type of clothes we wear or the schools we go to, all these different things can create division, all right? And particularly out there in the East County, people out there don't look like us, not very many. There are some out there, but it's not a strong community out there. That community can sometimes see people who don't look like them as outsiders and treat them as such. And when there's conflict, all right, how we handle conflict matters, all right? Conflict tends to bring out the worst in humanity. And this world is filled with conflict everywhere you go. The worst level of conflict is probably war. And wars are caused by differences that aren't as important as what might seem. But the worst thing that can come from that is people lose their lives, right? And when we bring that down to a smaller level, that's conflicts, fights that you have in school or at home or with your neighbors, all right? Or at an event out in East County. That's just poor conflict management. And you have to be mindful of your emotions and how you handle conflict. And every one of us deals with conflict differently. But what should be universal is that they shouldn't result in violence. Do what you can to control yourself. You can't be responsible for everyone else, but control yourself and not try to use violence as your way to resolve conflicts.
So let me ask you a question. Many of you guys are here and you all heard about the incident of one of our local football teams that they went to go visit another school. And when they went to that school, there was so much hate speech thrown their way. Tell me, how do you all handle that, especially those who are the athletes, those that go to and play at different things? How do you handle it, and how do you want us as adults to assist you to handle it? Because many times the trauma is real, and a lot of times you're saying, well, what can we do? Many times in the neighborhood, it's like, okay, you got something to say, let me come at you. So I'm going to ask you all, how are you handling that when that stuff takes place? All right? There's the question on the floor. Who's going to answer it? There you go. Go ahead. You said repeat the question?
Yeah.
We had a local high school that was playing another team up north, and when they got there, they were discriminated against, and it was not just on the field, but it was from the stands. They were called out their name, they were made fun of, and it was just a very disrespectful situation for them. It was very discriminating and racist. How do you handle that? Because that's not going to be the first time you're going to see those things happen in your life. How do you handle that? What recommendations would you give, and how do you want us to support you? Yes.
I think. Oh yeah, it's on. All right. So my name's Casey Jones. I would just say for anybody in that situation to just kind of just tune it out and play or do whatever you have to do to get up out of there. Cause I play football as well, and I faced that not like in a racist manner, but like as a you suck type of like from the stands or from the sidelines, just from people playing. You just need to tune it out, prove them wrong, do what you have to do, as well as like not just in sports, but like in school in general. In my middle school, it was mostly like a Mexican ran or like white like people like mostly, and there wasn't many like black students. And as a kid, I was when I was starting to hang out with more black kids, I was targeted, and they were telling my mom that I was hanging with the wrong crowd, and just that I wasn't with the right people. But around like 8th grade, and I started doing better because I was tired of everybody looking down on me and everything. I would just say that for like adults, they just be in their corner, just tell them that tell them their worth, tell them their value. My vice principal, he stuck out for me. Even though I didn't have like the best grades, I wanted to run for ASB president just to prove to myself and people around me that I could do it. But I didn't have the grades to do it. So my vice principal, he made a deal with me. He said that he would allow me to run if I promised to get my grades up, and that's exactly what we did. I started getting A's and B's, and he allowed me to run, and then I actually ran, and I got majority of the votes, and I became ASB president in 8th grade just because I had my principal, and I had my mom telling me I could do it, supporting me along the way. And yeah, that's really it.
Thank you, young man. I appreciate that. You can sit down. All right, now I done sat down, so now I'm getting comfortable. So I'm getting ready to ask some questions, and we're gonna get into it. Now, real talk. I grew up in southeastern San Diego. I grew up in Skyline, and so I had all types of friends. I had the studious friends. I had my church friends. I had my school friends, and I had my hood friends. My question to you is, how do you balance all those friends and still maintain your safety and your positive involvement and not getting wrapped up in the negative involvement? Because some of you all have friends and they'll say, well, birds of a feather flock together. So if you got friends that are in gangs, all of a sudden you become that gang member. How do you separate your school life from your community life, but always maintain who you are? Somebody, go ahead, sir.
My name's Elijah. So I know it's hard, but a lot of people will try to peer pressure you into doing things that you don't want to do. But for me, really what I did, because a lot of my friends, like transitioning into freshman year high school, they started, doing drugs and smoking and starting to get in gangs and stuff. So usually I used to hang out with them like middle school, and they would like offer me stuff, like weed and stuff. But for me, it was easy to say no, just because like I know like I have morals and like I have goals for myself. So like what I would say to the people out there who really need help with peer pressure and stuff, I would say like just say no. And if they keep peer pressuring you, they're not really your friends, because if your friends really care about you, they wouldn't try to downplay your goals that you have for yourself. And that's what I had to say.
All right, I like that, young man. So now I'm coming to the panel. You came from Detroit. They say that's the dirty D. You know what I'm saying? Matthew, you from San Diego, right? Dr. Thompson, you from Emerald Hills. I kind of want to hear, how did y'all navigate? Because there was a lot of hate going on as you all were coming up. Dr. Michelle, I want to give it to you first because you from the Hills.
I just want to share a real quick story about a friend of mine. She was a girl, first of all, and she got teased a lot. We caught the bus. We were actually taken out of Emerald Hills and into a predominantly white area, which is Patrick Henry. And a lot of times the real hood dudes would sit in the back of the bus. They owned the back of the bus. You couldn't go back there unless you had hood cred. So if you was like somebody that they didn't really respect, you had to go to the halfway mark where the emergency exit was at. If you wasn't hard, you couldn't go past that. So she was somebody they picked on a lot. First of all, she had a dry Jerry curl. Back then, Jerry curls was in, but her parents did not have the money to keep it nice and juicy, you know, curls banging and all of that. So she dressed kind of goofy. And the dudes used to mess with her a lot. It was this one particular dude who would pick on her on the bus. When she got off the bus, he would pick on her on the campus of the school. They would try to make her fall, stick their foot out when she was getting off the bus and make her trip and fall. One thing I did not know and nobody else knew is that she knew how to fight. And so it came down to it one day. He thought he was really going to be all up in her face talking trash, and she threw her books down that day. Now, unfortunately, I missed it, but I heard about it. So when she got off the bus, she threw her books down. This same dude was messing with her, calling her out her name, calling her bees and everything like that. So she squared off with him. And he was like, oh, we doing this? Still, he didn't even know what her skills was. And that's why it's really important that you be mindful of who you messing with, because you really don't know what they know. She was taught humility because she was a black belt in karate. Nobody knew that. Nobody. So when she squared off with him, he threw the first punch, and it was over after that. She took him down and out, and nobody messed with her anymore. But then they found out she was a trained black belt. So it's really important that we are mindful, and we picking on people and we think they don't know how to fight and we don't know what skills they got. You really got to be cautious about that, because when you do take martial arts, they treat you to be humble. They treat you to be, what do you call that? When you guys can't be showing anger and all that, you can't be talking trash. Discipline, there it is. They teach you how to be disciplined. So she endured the name calling and all of that for a long period of time until she couldn't take it no more. And I know that that was the training from her martial arts class that she had taken. I just wanted to share that story because I never forgot it. When I heard about what happened at school, I was like, dang, I missed it. I would have wanted to see her take this dude down because he kept messing with her over and over and over again. And she finally, you know, she reached her last straw.
Matthew, I'm going to come to you and ask you, because you grew up in the neighborhood, how did you navigate it all?
Born and raised Southeast San Diego, son of a physically disabled hotel worker and the son of a Crip gang member who did his part to terrorize the community. So growing up, and I went to just about every single hood school or considered hood school. I went to Crawford, I went to Lincoln, ultimately graduated from Hoover High School. So I definitely had my fair share of homies who were about that gang life, that gang culture, who was getting into stuff, getting arrested, selling drugs, weed, so on and so forth. The way that I navigated through all of that, I had three examples. I had my mother and I had my father. I learned, thank God, my hard work ethic from my mother, and I learned who not to be from my father. The worst kind of person you can think of, from assaulting women sexually and physically, to stealing cars. He was in prison more in his life than he actually lived life outside of prison. So I knew I didn't want to be like him or be surrounded by individuals like that. And last but not least, I was told by a very wise woman that you learn from your mistake. A wise man learns from his mistakes, and even wiser man learns from the mistakes of others. So I'm seeing my homies not graduating, and they're getting laughed at. They're the ones doing the bullying at school. Oh, your shoes is fake, or whatever the case. You eat school lunch. Ha ha ha, you poor. But then they're not graduating, and everyone's laughing at them. So I'm like, yo, I don't want to be like that. So I'm looking at them and being mindful. I guess the word for the purposes of this particular question is being mindful, I guess. Speaking to your point, Doc, on being mindful, really wanting the best for myself, and not really wanting to end up like anything like my father or the homies that kept getting held back. I had a friend who got held back 3 times, and he thought that was cool. And each year he got held back, the laughters got louder and louder at him, and he was the class clown clowning everybody. So I took a step back. I was like, nah, I don't want to be like that. That ain't cool. So a couple of you have often heard me explain these kinds of stories with the aim and goal of being mindful. Is it smart to hang around a kid who you know gets arrested a lot, or something is he or she is always into something, and thinking about the outcome and the responsibilities as a result of it.
So one of the things that you have to say is, number one, many times when we think about hate crimes, we only think about other cultures hating on us. But many times we have hate crimes with us hating on each other and us abusing each other. And many times we call it just bullying, but it can still be classified as hate. And so it's very important that you are aware what hate looks like, how it is exposed, and then how hate crimes or things like that can also be your triggers. And people will wonder, well, what happened? What happened? Well, you teased me so much, you made my self-esteem so bad, you treated me so bad that finally I had enough of it, and I said I must deal with you. Now, here's the situation with the young lady. She knocked the person out and everything else, but if he could still press charges against her for battery and assault, if I'm right, especially because she knew what she could do. And if she laid him out, if he would have died, there would have been other responsibilities that she would have been responsible for, even though she was triggered to that point. So I want to pass that to you, sir, and say, how does that work? You've been bullying me because you're taller. You're a fourth-degree black belt. I'm only a first-degree black belt, and you whoop me up, and my knee is hurt, my knee is sore, and I got a black eye, and it ain't gonna never be white again. And so I want to sue you, even though I was bullying you until you whooped me up. So how does that go from the legal portion of it?
Well, the one thing we have to understand is that we have rights, but rights also come with responsibilities, right? And you certainly have a right to defend yourself, right? From bullies, from people who are trying to harm you. But that response and how you do that matters, okay? You can defend yourself to a point that's reasonable, but you can't go beyond that. And what's reasonable actually depends on the circumstances that are involved. A person that called you a name, would it be reasonable to slap them because they called you a name? It happens though, right? Is it reasonable for the circumstances? Probably not, okay? So you got to keep that in mind. Your response has to be reasonable to the situation that dictated it, right? And in the response of the young lady, if a person is threatening to harm her, she can certainly defend herself and defend herself physically. With that being said, if that response, it would generate something that would be considered excessive, then she might have to be held accountable for that. Because like I said, rights and responsibilities have to matter. They have to be in line with one another, right? If someone was to punch you, would shooting them be an appropriate response? Go ahead, shake your head. No, it's not. You can agree with us on that. It's not.
But how many of y'all would say it might not be the appropriate response, but I might snap? Do I got any snappers out there that be like, okay, so we got some work to do. That's good,
Right. And that could change. That could change. It is because a person's wearing a blue shirt and people in another area don't wear blue shirts. They might wear different color shirts. Is it appropriate to shoot them? No, it's not. But it happens. And I know it happens to you because it happened to me. All right? Where I grew up, my parents divorced when I was 4 years old. All right, and I can't tell you much about my life before 4 years old, but I certainly can tell you what happened after they divorced at 4 years old. Okay, and my father lived in Detroit. He played for the Detroit Pistons for a couple of seasons, and my mom, unfortunately, she eventually found work in General Motors, but during that time in the nation, General Motors had struggles, and you could work for so long and then you'd be laid off for so long. So we wound up living in a housing complex in Flint. My grandmother also lived there. My father's mother lived in that same housing complex, and we had a lot of relatives in that housing complex, but it was very poor, right? The school district would bring out lunch and breakfast for us in the summertime in the park so that we could have things to eat. They also brought out, things for recreation and those sorts of things, but it wasn't considered to be a great thing. We used to get gift boxes from the government that had food in. Do y'all have government cheese, the big block of cheese? Okay.
That made some good
right.
Cheese sandwiches.
Right. We didn't have no ramen in there. It was powdered milk. It was milk that you had to add water to make milk. And, oh, my goodness, it was bad. Yeah. When people had, anybody had ever had Captain Crunch? Captain Crunch, that's a name brand cereal. But for us, we had King Vitamin. King Vitamin wasn't the name brand cereal. It was an off-brand cereal. We got a big block of cheese. It was about like this big, right, and this thick. And you needed a saw to cut it. And it didn't melt. You weren't making a grilled cheese sandwich. You were making a block cheese sandwich. Yeah. Okay, so y'all live that life too. I can appreciate that in California. I thought it was just us in Flint. Okay. Anyway, the point that I'm making is that things are different, and you can experience hate not just based on skin color or clothes or anything like that. You can experience hate based on money and how much access you have to it. And your shoes are cheap. Yeah, I had to buy my shoes for a time out of the grocery store, right?
Broker sacks.
Yeah, right. And I remember being in 8th grade, going out for the basketball team, and I bought some new shoes out of Meyer Thrifty Acres. That's what it was called. Anything that has the word thrifty in it means it's probably cheap, right? And I didn't make the basketball team my 8th grade year because my shoes, Nikes weren't out then, right? We wore Converse. Right, Converse All-Stars. You call them Chuck Taylors today, right? They were the primary basketball shoes, but I wound up getting some shoes out of Myers, and the bottoms were slick and kind of disintegrated, and I was slipping and falling, and I got cut from the 8th grade basketball team because of that, because we just didn't have money. But the uniqueness of my upbringing is that I went back and forth between my parents. My father lived a uniquely different lifestyle after he grew up very poor in the South. At 15 years old, he made it up to Michigan, where one of his sisters was working for General Motors, and eventually they brought some of my other family members up, even though they had to live in a housing complex. He was a very talented athlete, and he wound up getting a scholarship to play basketball at Central Michigan University and moving on to the NBA. And with that, that changed his life. And my brother and I basically would spend a couple of years living with my mother, and then we go back to living with my father just because of the dynamics in their relationship and things that were going on. And it's tough for moms, single moms, to raise boys, right? We can admit that, right? Moms, y'all agree or disagree? Yeah. Okay, so boys.
All right, veterans.
Boys present challenges to single moms. We do, right? 'Cause I know I did, right? And when my mom had enough, she's like, you got to go live with your father, right? And then we have a totally different sort of atmosphere at that point because suddenly, as a 6'3", 13-year-old, right? My mom is not a whole. You're not afraid anymore of being whooped. Y'all don't get whooped, huh?
None of y'all get whooped anymore?
Y'all don't get whooped? Okay. Well, wow. I did.
She said they take away privileges.
Oh, you got more than privileges taken away. You got whooped, right? And you reach a certain point where suddenly you're kind of too big to get whooped, and it just doesn't have the same impact. Then you go live with your father, who's just as big as you, and bigger than you, and tougher than you, and hey, different level of discipline. But in any case, we went back and forth several times in our lifetime, and within that, we learned how to navigate different spaces, because my father lived in the suburbs, right, where we were the only black family living in the suburbs, right? In the projects, we had the issues with gangs and all those things we had to navigate. And then when I'm living with my father, I have issues with racism, being one of the only black families in this community. All right, we had 2 black families and 1 Palestinian family, right? And them two, was all called the N-word frequently, right? We had to fight on the school bus and have all those problems and all those issues, right? But within that, like I said, I learned how to walk in multiple circles and how to navigate. And I guess one of the biggest takeaways from that is understanding who you sit with, right? Because who you sit with matters. That means who you hang out with, right? Who you hang out with is who you're going to talk to, who you're going to listen to, who you're going to act like, who you're going to be like. And that matters. You have to choose your friends wisely, right? Because in each one of those environments that I was in, they had different pitfalls and different trap doors that I had to learn how to navigate. And I didn't always do it. I didn't always do it well. I had an older cousin who was a champion wrestler in high school. He was 6'6" and 260 pounds. And you guys watch Friday? My cousin was Debo. Looked like Debo, acted like Debo before there was Debo. And being around him put me in spaces that I shouldn't have been in, because he also was a gang member. Okay? So just understanding that you're making choices at this point in your life that could impact you in the future. And I'm not afraid to share with you that one of those decisions was being in the car with my cousin and some of his gang member friends, and I'm a police officer today probably because of this decision, where they had did, like, I guess they call it flash mob, whatever, when you go in and steal everything from a store or whatever. They did that and got in the car, and a security guard came out, and one of the guys pulled out a gun and started shooting, right? And my next choice and my next words was, hey, stop the car. I got to get out, right? Because this is where this ends for me, right? I got to get out. And they let me out, and I walked all the way home, right? And from then on, I was like, not getting in the car with you guys, not hanging out with you guys, right? And there were some things that were fun, hanging out with my older cousin who was a gang member when I was 15 years old and 6'3". I had a little mustache and things. I would get in the nightclubs with them because they weren't stopping them from getting in the nightclubs. So don't you go to nightclubs.
You're not going to tell them all that.
Okay. I'm just trying to keep it real with you guys. All right. Life's not perfect.
With that being said, I'm going to bring it back to you all. And I'm going to ask the question as simply this. I believe, and parents, you can jump in on this too. Once you get to a certain age as a young African-American male, there's the conversation that your parents have with you about how to navigate life when you are stopped by an officer, when you have a conflict on the school campus, when you are seen in a store and someone is following you. So young men, have your parents had that conversation with you yet? And if they have, somebody come to the mic and tell me what that conversation. All right, Mr. Blackman, I see you. Let's see what the conversation. Then I want to follow up with one of these powerful parents to say their conversation in addition to.
All right, my parents had that conversation with me like when I was 14. The beginning of my sophomore year, I had walked out of my garage because I walked to school. It's like a 10-minute walk away. I had to walk to school like basically every day. I was walking out of the garage and a police car comes behind me, and I'm not even sure like it was a police car at first because I'm just walking, minding my own business. I turn around, I look, and he's like, "Hey, sit down." I was like, "All right." And he had the police officer had set me down on the curb. It was a white police officer, and he was asking me where I just came from. I was like, I literally just came from my house like not even 2 seconds ago, and he was asking me if I was like at a store because apparently 2 other black kids had stole from the store, like the mall, like not even far away from my house. And he thought he knew it wasn't me. He was just picking on me because obviously the color of my skin. He probably just thought I looked like the people that they were looking for. The conversation my parents had to talk with me about was just when they're asking you questions like that, you don't really have to say too much. Just keep quiet and just sit there. And if you say too much, they might like have something to put against you. So yeah.
All right. Well, when the parents get up, I want to hear the conversation you have with your child when they get older. Okay, which one's gonna come? All right, the one that said it's a breeze. Come on up. She said, raising up. Yes, you have to get up. Come to the mic. Move the mic down so they can hear you. There you go.
Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry that happened to you. That shouldn't have happened to you. You don't deserve that. My conversation with my son, as well as anyone else's son who I interact with, is a bit different. I want to say to you young men that as your parents and as those that come before you in this community, you don't need to be afraid. And we need to do a better job helping to instill power in you so that you're not afraid. You don't deserve to be afraid when you're walking around and when you're just living your life. Be respectful, be kind, but also be smart, powerful, and strong. Know who you are, right? You are just as capable, just as needed, and just as important as anyone else. So it's our job as your mothers, as your fathers, as the people that are coming before you to show you how to be strong. When you interact with police, just like when you interact with the administrators at your school or whomever else, again, be respectful and kind, but don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. You deserve to be here, and you have a voice. Use it. Be smart. Be eloquent, right? Speak like you got some sense, right? But be powerful, okay? And understand that it comes from in here. You're deserving of that power. You don't have to diminish it because you come into contact with someone that you were told to be afraid of, okay? What's happening in this country that we don't often talk about is that there's a shift. There's hate also going on with these young men. This is a targeted group as well. And in the schools, they are being targeted because they're young men. Right, because they're young black men. And they're being targeted because they don't fit into the mold of the protected group. There's a protected group. There's another group now. We don't have political mandate to require that Black history is celebrated in the schools, but we do have political mandate to require that pride is celebrated in the schools. And so these young men are put up against, now they are hated on simply for being young men, simply for having testosterone, simply for being masculine. And that's not okay. So it starts right here with us. We support you. It's okay for you to be masculine. It's okay for you to be young men. And it's okay for you to not be afraid. Right, Commander?
Yes, yes.
Is that right? Okay.
That is correct.
Thank you so much. Now, we have to give her a hand. Give her a hand. I'm going to have another parent come up, but I do want to say simply this, is that in the school system, there are a lot of different groups that are being highlighted. But what's more important is that we highlight ourselves and that we are present, we are visible, and we're undeniable. Many times, like the parents said, be vocal, but be eloquent. Be respectful and mindful of your energy. A lot of times, it could just be your energy that gets things either going up or down. We are always consistently teaching you how to de-escalate and then also understanding where your resources are. There are certain things up on the board where it says stop the hate, where you can literally call in and report a hate crime anonymously. You know, if you felt like you were stopped, not only is there the stop the hate, but you can actually call the police department themselves, and they have a line where you can report if you feel like an incident was inappropriate. What we want to do as we move forward and hearing from young people is to know what resources that you do need. And then so, Ms. Tammy T, I want you to say what you have to say, and then Commander, I want you to tell them the resources that they can have and what advice you would give the young men, because, you know, we get followed driving while black, walking while black, big while being black. We get stopped for all kind of different things. Our hair's too kinky. There must be something that we stole from the store because your hair's too big, so it got to be something in it. So how do we navigate that, and how do we deal with that, and what are our rights? So Miss Tammy T, we're going to go to you, and then we're going to come back to the Commander.
You pretty much covered most of the things that I was going to say. When I have 4 boys, and they range in age, with Casey being my youngest, but when I speak with my boys, initially I taught them or tried to instill in them that the police officers are here to protect and to serve, and I tried to teach them that they actually are our friends. Now, I also would talk to them about reading the room. If you get pulled over, if you get stopped, you have to read the room and you have to adjust yourself. Speak respectfully, but also speak with confidence. These are the kinds of things that you have to do when you're being addressed. You have to know your rights. So please know what your rights are and be able to articulate them. Don't talk slang, you know, just, you don't want to be overly anything, really. You got to pull back and don't talk too much. Those are some of the things that I would teach. I want to say, though, that during the civil unrest, 2020, COVID, and all of that, I have to also say that my perspective changed. And I couldn't tell my boys, don't be afraid, because they needed to be afraid. They needed to fear, because you don't know what's going to happen. If you overexert yourself, if you're overly confident, you could get taken down just because of that and the fact that you're black. And, you know, one of the things that literally made me cry was when my son was coming home and got pulled over in front of my house. And he was literally in tears. He was like, and this is a grown son, and he was afraid. He was like, I don't even know what to do anymore. Except, you know, I tell him, you just have to be self-aware. Read the room. If they're being told to do something, do it, you know, show your hands, all of those things. Those are the things that I talk to my boys about, because it's real and it happens, and it's not just the white officers anymore.
I can tell you that, first of all, if I'm sitting here today, I've been in your shoes and I faced those same challenges as a young man with law enforcement. And one of the reasons why I'm here today is to try to change that narrative and try to be like an officer that was in my community that was known by all the kids and known by all the parents. And he was the football coach and the guy that was out there helping folks. But that doesn't mean every police officer is like that. What I can tell you is that there are specific rules that they have to go by when they engage with you, all right? But what your responsibility is, first of all, if you are pulled over by the police, and that could be in a car where they flash their red and blue lights when you're driving. I don't think, is anybody driving age? Y'all don't look driving age. Okay, so you're not driving a car. They can also stop you on foot. That would be called a pedestrian stop, where they ask you to stop. The worst thing you can do is run. Changes the rules of engagement for everything. Don't run. Stop. Be calm, right? And let them tell you what they need you to do, right? When they have got to the point now where they want to talk to you by asking your name, okay, they're going to explain to you why they're interacting with you. One of the best things you could do is ask for your parents. That's one of the first things you can do, right? If they ask for your identification, give it to them, right? Because you are establishing your compliance level. Running would be non-compliant, and that changes everything, right? So don't run. If you're in a car, you're driving, don't speed away. That changes everything, right? Stop. Keep your body language calm, okay? And answer questions that relate to who you are. Do you have to answer questions about what you were doing? No. Are they going to ask you questions about what you're doing? Yes. Right? So if they ask, where are you coming from? I'm sorry, officer. I don't want to answer any questions. Can you call my mother? Right? That's how you respond to those kind of things. Don't get excited. Right? Don't move around too much, things like that. Just be still, be calm, and you work through the process. The other thing you can ask for is ask for a supervisor, right? Particularly if it becomes physical, if it's a physical confrontation, if they handcuff you, whatnot, make sure you ask for a supervisor, but you don't have to answer questions. You have an obligation to identify yourself, but you don't have to answer any questions about where you're coming from, what you did, all those kinds of things. That may prolong the engagement because they have to have a reason for stopping you, and usually that reason is as a result of something else that has taken place, right? There could be some teenagers that stole something from someone else, and that call came in, and they are looking for people that could potentially be those people because they're out there to catch people that are doing wrong. And wrong is done to us too as a community. You could have something of yours taken from someone and the police get called, and you would expect them to go out and look for those people that were responsible, right? So it's a give and take kind of thing.
Oh, I can go. All great stuff. I agree with that. I kind of want to dig a little deeper because it's all easier said than done, right? Until you're smack dab in the middle of that situation. And especially in this day and age where cell phones and video recording devices are everywhere. And I kind of wanted to ask you this as well, since it's a discussion if we can record instances or not. But first and foremost, kind of want to go back to what do you do in the instance of being pulled over or stopped by a law enforcement officer. I worked for the mayor of San Diego. I got pulled over a couple times and I was still triggered. You know what I mean? So it's kind of easier said than done to just not react, not run, certainly, but not have an automatic or some sort of trauma response when you cross paths with someone with a badge and a gun. So I kind of wanted to just kind of delve deeper in it a little bit, because listening to your story, Jeremiah, I have the same exact experience as you did. And it was the reason why I decided to jump into government to try to affect policy changes from within the system. Long story short, I was about 15, 16, walking home from school, got pulled over by a police officer just like you, and I'm minding my business, and I see a flashlight all in my grill. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? And hey, boy, sit down on the curb. They're getting out. It's about 3 different police officers, or cars, not officers, 3 different police cars with multiple police officers in there. I understand, law enforcement, they do their job. They have to look for the bad guys, things of that nature. But the point still remains is that most of us as young black men will have a trauma response. Do I make sense? Like when if there's any type of what we perceive to be a hostile action from a law enforcement officer, when y'all are just trying to do your job, and then there's an automatic disconnect. You follow me? So just kind of want to go a little deeper into that. And then in this digital day and age, what are the specifics of video recording and the rights around that? Is it recommended? Would it fan the flames? Would it save us? Would it, kind of delve deep on that? Can they confiscate things of that nature?
Well, the first thing, also understand that the officer is recording as well. And let's say there's several people in the car. All right, there's a lot for them to try to keep track of. All right, particularly when they are dealing with a call that could have resulted in some violence. This could be a car that looks like a car that has come from a scene where someone was hurt or someone was injured. So officers also have a very heightened response when it's a very, very difficult and tense situation for them emotionally to walk up to a car and not know who's inside it and not know what those people have or have not done, right? And having done that thousands of times, I can tell you that they have emotions too, all right? Because officers are injured doing this job every single day. So those feelings that you expressed, they are having those same sorts of feelings with them because they want to go home at night, and officers have been shot, killed, run over, you name it, doing that job. So it's a very dangerous job. But back to the point, controlling your emotions is crucial to the outcome, right? As the same as it is for the officers. Controlling their emotions is also crucial in helping determine the outcome. Can you record? Yes. Should you record? Yes. Can the officer tell you not to record? Yes. Right? So there's all these different dynamics that go into it. Each situation is going to be a little bit different. If you're a driver and the officer's asking you for identification and those sorts of things, but you're fumbling with your phone and talking about, that's kind of raising the emotional level for the officer, all right? Because the officer has to, in essence, be able to control the action that's going on in the car, right? And fumbling around, messing with your phone, looking for things, moving your hands. Your hands are so important. Your hands are important. Where your hands are when the officer's talking to you means everything, right? Keep your hands where they can be seen and talk calmly. That will de-escalate the officer. But fumbling around, moving your hands, taking them out of view, that raises emotions. And the reason why I can explain that is because that actually happened to me when I was your age. With my brother and I was 17, my brother was 15. We were in a store playing video games, right? And the store clerk, we were in an area that people didn't look like us, right? Store clerk called, the police showed up. They asked us to basically, I mean, surprise us. We didn't know we were there. We're playing a game. Excuse me. They're like, step away from the games. And we turn around, police officers there, right? And then this questioning starts. And that questioning quickly moves to, can I see your identification? My brother kept his identification in the inside pocket of his jacket, so he reached his hand inside. That automatically triggered the response from the officer. They grabbed him and they pushed him into the window in front of the store, right? And in essence, you know, hey, don't reach your hands in your pocket. And they threw him into the window, and why are you doing that? And you asked me for my ID, right? And we worked through that. Nothing happened because we weren't doing anything, right? And there was no apology, nothing like that. I just had to go home and tell my parents about that situation. But what I learned from that is, hey, keep your hands where they can be seen. Be calm, relax. When I would get pulled over, and they ask for the vehicle information, it's in the glove box, officer. Can I reach into the glove box? They say, yes, you can reach in the glove box real slow, and right? Because they're trying to be safe too, right?
So basically, it's about learning how to navigate through every situation, and where they say be smart and be intelligent, and also know who you are from the very beginning, because you are your mother's child, your father's child. You are somebody that people love, and so your job is to get home. And many times we get angry, but you cannot let your anger then get you making bad decisions. And in the long run, you find yourself on the other side of wrong instead of on the right side of right. Yes, sir. Come on up to the mic.
Just want to say God is good.
All the time?
Right. So I was sitting in the back, and I was convicted to share something with everyone. And my son is in the audience, Cameron. So real quick, when it comes to this topic, it's extremely delicate and important to me and my family. I'm not used to being pulled over by the police. I'm from the South Bronx, and in that community, you're a target. So I'm used to that. But I always felt like I was right, so my sense of panic wasn't even really that strong. And you never want to get numb to that, but unfortunately I was. But it wasn't until I was serving overseas in Japan, and I was home with my family in San Diego. Cameron was 7 months, and I got a phone call from my sister. And that phone call was that my little brother had been shot in the head. So initially I was confused. I broke down. I didn't know what was going on. So I turned to my wife and I said, I need to go home. Got home and found out the details. He was shot in the head by a police officer while he was walking home from a baby shower. At that time, he was a junior in high school, 17 years old, and he played on the basketball team. He was one of my reasons for enlisting in the United States Navy. So that moment, I had to be strong for my family, my mother, and my sister. Initially, I was confused because I'm serving my country, have been serving my country, and I've been doing everything that society says I should do right. So why would this happen to my family? It wasn't until I began to rely and lean on my faith to get me and my family through, and realize that every police officer, everyone is not the same. And instead of me getting upset to the point where I wanted to hurt someone else, I decided to educate myself. I decided to learn about myself. Now that my son is about to be 17, in a couple of years, this hits me different because my sense of fear now is like, wow, it could happen. However, Jesus Christ is the head of my home, and I believe everyone has a purpose. So this is what I teach my son. He has a purpose, and he should not fear anyone. I wanted to share this with everyone and say that this is a real thing. Keep God first, please. And I'm proud of each and every one of you gentlemen that's here today and to this panel for sharing this. God bless.
Thank you so much. Now, I know that we've been here for a long time, but I personally invited a representative from the DA's office just to give you some information on what hate crime is, what does it look like, how you can help report it, and then just give you some general information. So we're going to close off today with Cheryl Sewing Jones coming up to here. Cheryl, I don't know if you want to use the microphone and stand or sit, but I want to thank you. Now, this is what I talk about when I say real community. I called Commander Kelso a couple of days ago, and I said, look, bruh, I need you to come in. And he said, for the young people, I'm here. I called Ms. Sewing Jones maybe a day ago, and I said, I need you. And she said she would do it, and she did it in her busy schedule. She had other commitments. But I want to say thank you for making it. I appreciate you, and we're going to let you end off this with the information and how you can continue to help the young men.
Okay. Well, I guess it's still morning. Good morning, young men. My name is Cheryl Sewing Jones, and I am an attorney with the District Attorney's Office. And what I do now, rather than trying cases in court, is I go and I try to prevent crime before it happens. And a lot of the way I do that is by talking to young people like you. And Dr. Thompson asked me to talk to you today about hate crimes. Now, have you guys heard about hate crimes? I'm sure you have, right? So I'll just put it very simply. A hate crime is any crime that happens that is motivated by hate. And so there are hate crimes, and then there are hate incidents. So for instance, if somebody walks up to you and, calls you out of your name and, hits you or kicks you, then that's a hate crime. If somebody just walks up to you and calls you out of your name and insults you, that's a hate incident. And we get lots of hate incidents, but in our office, we want to know about them anyway, because oftentimes hate incidents will lead up to hate crimes. So some other instances of what a hate incident is. I don't know if you guys remember, right during COVID, there was a person in Santee in a grocery store. They came in dressed like a Ku Klux Klan, and people were very, very offended by it. However, because he didn't actually commit a crime in doing that, we could not prosecute it as a hate crime. But these are all hate incidences, and this is more of what we see happening in our community. And so we want to do training so that people really understand the differences between the two of them. But we also just want to make sure that you understand that our office does want to know about those things. So we have a website that you can put the information into. Because let's say that somebody has been, harassing you and saying unpleasant things to you, for days and days. And then one day they just walk up to you. They don't say anything unpleasant. They just hit you in the face. So we need to know So hitting you in the face without it being attached to a hate crime is a crime, but we can only put the allegation on it if it's related to hate. So if we know that these other things have been happening all along, then it helps us to be able to prove that it was a hate crime. Now, we do know that hate incidences are happening in your schools. I get phone calls all the time about, somebody has done something to some child. Just a few weeks ago, there was a kid at middle school who was being taunted by black girl being taunted by white girls. And the white girls would follow behind her and call her names and kick her and all this kind of stuff. But they would do it where nobody else really saw them doing it. And so then one day after school, this child, the little black girl decides that she's going to, punch the white girl, and she beats her up. Well, guess who got kicked out of school? The little black girl got kicked out of school. Because although that's a normal reaction that you'd want to have, you really have to not do that. You have to talk to your parents or to your teachers, to your administrators, and let them know that this is happening. And then if you're not getting satisfied that they are handling it, that's when you can call us. We can't make them do anything, but we can offer them training. We can make suggestions. Like in this case, I suggested that they have a restorative circle so that the kids could understand, the kids that were doing the name calling and the kicking could understand the perspective of the victim. Now, they did not agree to do that. So it's very sad that we live in the world now where people can say offensive things, and it's coming, from the top of government that's making it okay to say racist things. But I want you all along the lines of you want to get home every night, you want to get to your parents every night. So if somebody says something nasty, anybody heard of the First Amendment? Okay, so the First Amendment says that it's called freedom of speech. And freedom of speech means that you can say whatever you want to say, unless, of course, it's inciting violence. Now, if you're getting people to try to, get people to gang up to beat somebody up, and you're just using the words, then that's a crime. But most of what happens is just incidents. And it's very harmful to young people. It's detrimental to their self-esteem. But we do want you to not retaliate, not hit them back, because guess who will be in trouble? Now, hitting them back, that's different, but don't hit them first. And even hitting them back doesn't work very well, because then oftentimes I think both kids get kicked out of school. So just, try to keep a stiff upper lip and report to someone. Again, report to your parents, to your teachers. If that doesn't work, report it to us. Because sometimes what we'll do is we'll just call the school and talk to them about it. And so they feel just a little bit intimidated by the fact that the DA is calling. And so sometimes that will encourage them to take some sort of action. We want to know about it. Have any of you been dealing with people saying racist things to you at school? Okay, what did you do about it?
Use the mic. I like that. He went the long way around. I like that.
My name is Cameron Felton, and I've been called the N-word at school by someone who's not black.
And what did you do?
And I retaliated.
You retaliated?
Yeah.
How did you retaliate?
I said some things too that I can't say right now.
So you retaliated with words?
Yes.
Okay, now that's not actually retaliation with words. At least it's not the kind of retaliation that is likely to get you kicked out of school or arrested or something like that. So just like that person had free speech to say it to you, you had free speech to say it back to them. But we don't want to really encourage that because, then, two wrongs don't make a right. But I'm happy to know that you didn't hit them. Yeah, but you probably wanted to, right?
and words have power, and especially when you give it to them. And so sometimes you have to be very mindful of how you respond because there's that whole thing about mutual combat. So when you have mutual combat in school systems, you're both suspended. What we are dealing with is when the suspensions are not equal. If it's mutual combat, but the black kid gets 4 days or get recommended for expulsion, and the other kid that doesn't look like you get 2 days or 1 day, that's when we have to step in. I want to say this because I think it's very important for everybody here to hear this. The snitching rules, because y'all got this big thing about I'm not going to snitch, but I want you to understand, talking to your parents and understanding your rights and seeking out protection in bad situations is not snitching. If you know that somebody is being discriminated against and you call and you report it to your parents, you call this number here on no hate, you are not snitching. You are providing information that could save a life. So I want everybody that got these snitching things, if you call the anonymous line at the DA's office or the anonymous line at the police department, that is not snitching when you are saving a life, okay? Many times we are quiet, but we'll be the first one in tears if we see that person that we should have said something and we didn't say something. And then some of you all are going through some things and you don't want to say anything because you feel like if I say it, then I'm snitching and they're going to think this and they're going to think that. The reality is simply this. As parents, you are our number one asset. We will take the bullet for you. You know what I'm saying? We will provide the protection you need. So don't ever feel like you got to be quiet, especially when you're at risk. All right. Now, we have here, and we're getting ready to close out the session. We have Commander in the police department. He's going to be here to answer any questions that y'all might have that y'all didn't want to put on camera. We got the DA's office here. And I thank God that we got good looking leaders in these departments. You know what I'm saying? So y'all don't have to be afraid. They're not sitting up there like, and looking like they're untouchable. These are our community leaders, our community. So we wanted to bring you here with Dr. Michelle and Brother Gordon and all the family members that are here to let you know that this is safe. We're going to continue to talk about these issues. We're going to continue to have real conversation, and we're going to give you resources. And this is not, when you see Commander Kelso, don't look at him as just Commander Kelso. He's a community member. And so he wants to hear from you. He wants to talk to you. He wants you to have the option. When you see from the DA's office, Ms. Suing Jones, she literally has said, Dr. T, one of the things I love doing is going out and educating and talking to young people. So this is their sweet spot. You know what I'm saying? The same way with Brother Gordon and Dr. Michelle. This is our sweet spot. So we're going to ask you all as we go and we talk more about stopping the hate, stopping the violence, that we continue this conversation. And I want to thank everybody that's come out today. Ms. Suing Jones, do you have any final words? I'm going to give everybody the opportunity. If any final words that anybody has before we say it's a wrap and we'll see you next time.
I'm just going to reiterate what Dr. T said. I am available to talk to any of you anytime. I pretty much answer my phone 24/7. If you don't have the number, I'm sure Dr. T can give it to you. And please call me if you have any questions or if something happens that you feel uncomfortable about, or if your parents want to call me, that's fine. It's not always that we're going to be able to prosecute a case, but we want to know about these things. So because later on down the road if we do want to prosecute. We need to have the background information. So call us.
Just want to give a shout out again to Mr. Thompson for organizing this entire event. Give him a round of applause real quick. And thank you for partnering with us and providing our young black men the opportunity and platform to speak and share their innermost thoughts. While it's also on my brain, I want to give some flowers to Commander Kelso. For a long, long time, professionally and personally, I have repeatedly seen this black man step into some of the most hostile of environments and handle it with dignity and the utmost, just being a leader. So I want to take time to give you flowers and say thank you for being here on behalf of our community. I've never known him to BS anybody. He don't play. But he is about our community, so I do want to give you flowers as well. Last but not least, piggybacking on Mr. Thompson's point, we often talk about snatching opportunities when it's presented to you, right? We talked about the system a little bit today. These individuals in particular are in the system, and they're working to change that system. So use the opportunity afforded to you here today to connect with them, ask questions, so on and so forth. But other than that, I appreciate
you. I certainly appreciate being here, Dr. Thompson, and thank you for inviting me, even though it was last minute. But I couldn't turn him down, right? Because it's about you. That's the difference right there. Believe it or not, all of us here were once in your shoes, right? And it's our responsibility to reach back and help you move forward because you're going to be doing that same thing. One of you could be up here talking to young people. And I've been watching Blue Heart since before it even formed, right? I've connected with Blue Heart over the years on many occasions. The founder was somebody that was very important to me as well, and I want to make sure that we continue that legacy with you. So if I can leave you with any really important words, life is not fair. People are going to say things that are going to upset you and harm you and do things that are going to upset you and potentially harm you. But how you respond is important. Be responsible, be smart, right? And when you have situations that are harmful to you, tell someone about it, right? Don't just respond, right? Because that's where we lose control. We respond with our emotions. You got to keep your emotions in check and think smart. Always get yourself home safe. Talk to your parents. That's the best thing I can leave you with.
I want to thank all of you also for participating today. I thought I was going to hear from the young ladies, but a majority of the time when youth are in a town hall like this and we're talking about hate crimes, it seems like what mostly applies to you is bullying and peer pressure. I didn't hear anybody bring up religion or, being of a particular faith or anything like that. Shout out to my brother with the green. Go Kingdom. I love it. But we're not going to just stop with town halls with you all. We started with this one. This one's being recorded. It's going to be utilized with some other states that are also a part of the initiative. But I know you experience discrimination on other levels other than peer pressure and bullying. But that seems to be the most common topic, and mostly the young men spoke on that today. I would love to hear our young ladies speak on some things as well, because I also know you experience some type of discrimination when it comes to femininity. We might not get to that today, but when we come back to the youth again, hopefully I will be able to hear from the young ladies as well. But I want to thank the parents as well, our panel discussions, and everybody that's on the panel today. Thank you all for sharing and just engaging us. I loved it, and I want to do it again.
With that being said, on behalf of GOD Radio, the California Black Media Organization, and the California versus Hate and Stop the Hate and Blue Heart Foundation, we want to say thank you all for joining us. Hope to see you soon. Y'all be blessed.